All right, Rick, before we get to your fantastic tease, of what a team with the first overall pick might do in terms of the player they take, let's talk about this Georgia-Texas game.
Ugh.
Huge expectations. We were so excited last Thursday to see what unfolded. And if you had interest in watching players, not quarterbacks, there's a lot of fun things. We'll talk about, we'll each highlight a player. I told Rick to pick one, don't tell me, and I did the same. No one else, we probably picked the same guy. But first, let's talk about the quarterbacks. We'll start with Carson Beck. 23 of 41. I mean, what are we doing? 175, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, ran 5 times for 8 yards. He's not getting worse. He's getting less consistent, and it's frustrating. It seems like he's playing the game, seeing less of the field as he goes through the season. Some of the throws he makes, it seems like he doesn't see defenders that he should see. I'll just start there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, they had the burnt orange jerseys on. Texas did. So do not throw the ball to the burnt orange jerseys. And the decision making, which is the most disappointing to me, because I thought that he was a really good decision maker. And after we talked about the first half of the Kentucky game, coming back to second half, he's played really, really at a high level. That's why I had him at my top quarterback last week. But then he took a spin backwards, like right down the drain in this performance. Never looked comfortable in the pocket. Never looked didn't throw with conviction, if that makes sense, in his decision-making process. So I was, very disappointed. I was hoping in a spotlight on national TV, the game of the week, we saw that with, Ohio State and Oregon, and Gabriel came through and came out with flying colors. Will Howard, if he learns how to slide a little earlier, maybe who knows what happens.
Played okay up to that point.
Yeah, but they didn't. They, at least the bright lights didn't affect their performance. For whatever reason, between the two of these quarterbacks, and you're hoping one would say, hey, I'm on a spotlight. Everybody in the world is watching me play tonight. And both of them crap down the bed, as they say in Ohio.
Yeah, never heard that one. That's a new one. The first interception, he didn't see the safety underneath, who sort of dropped down from a too high look and just intercepted the ball coming from Carson's left to right. The second interception was one of the worst interceptions I've seen, the slant in the red zone. I mean, you could have hit me on that route in the hands. He missed him. And that kid, 6'4". Yeah.
It was Delp, right? The tight end.
The third interception was a controversial play where they overturned it after the kids threw the water bottles on the field.
Yeah.
They got the call right. The process of getting there is, you can discuss that, but I think that was the receiver's fault on that play. Either way, you had 3 interceptions. You didn't throw a touchdown, and it just looked like he was confused at times about where to go with the ball and setting his receivers up to take huge hits. It was a very weird performance given the way we've talked about him previously. So here's one of the 2 notes I wrote. You can answer these questions if you don't mind. How much does Georgia trust him? Because it feels like they don't trust him to do a lot at this point. The other question was, can he ever evolve into present-day Jared Goff, or is he going to be the Jared Goff we saw who struggled a little bit when he came out in that different St. Louis Rams offense?
They're all going to struggle, these rookie quarterbacks, because they're not as gifted as last year's class. You're not going to see a C.J. Stroud or a Caleb Williams or, to me, a Jaden Daniels as rookie starters out of any of this crew. So I do think he's going to be a solid starter. Do I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler and set all kinds of records? No, but I think for whatever reason, and boy, this pre-draft process, I can guarantee you, all 32 teams are going to put on this tape and ask what the heck was happening here and why did it happen. Now, what I always told you is, when they play this week, how does he respond to such a crappy performance in the Texas game? That'll be fun to watch and see, because he responded the last time he played crappy in Kentucky with, very good games against Auburn and Mississippi State. And say what you want about their defense, but this one was even crappier. And I'm anxious to see how he responds.
But how many times do you want to say, hey, after that last crappy game you played, you bounced back? You don't want to say that 3 or 4 times in the course of a combine interview.
Okay, so this will be a second one. 3 strikes and you're out. Is that what
3 strikes and you're out?
All right.
So listen, after you have Carson Beck come through the interview room, just have Quinn Ewers standing outside to come in next, so you can just flip over the tape and go to the other side of the ball. Yeah. Because look, how long can we say Quinn Ewers is coming back from injury, and that's
He always plays bad when he comes back from injury. Even, the Michigan game, lights out, and then hurt and not playing at the same level since. Alabama game a couple years ago, lights out and never played the same, in my opinion. Although, he had a pretty good run at the end of last season. So I'll give him some credit for that. But this poor kid, watching him, it looked like he was guiding the ball. It was like, no authority, no decisiveness, no pepper on the ball, no steam, whatever you want to say. It almost looked like he was playing Frozen or too robotic.
Can I give you my one of the things I noted? It felt like Eli Manning towards the end of his career when he would chuck and duck.
Yeah, well, I would say I like my terminology better, Frozen.
Okay, Frozen. Fair enough. I want to get my 2 cents in there. Go ahead.
Yes. So some of the decisions he made in this game, some of the interceptions, I could see why they benched him, and he came back second half, had a glimmer of some hope on a couple throws, but I don't know what was going through his head either. But this was one of the poorest performances I've seen from him since we've been watching him for the last 16 years since he's been in college.
So he got pulled with about 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. Everyone was cheering because Arch was coming in. We talked about Arch a few weeks ago with our buddy Coop Patagna, and we both really like Arch a lot. Arch had a cold bucket of water thrown in his face against that Georgia defense. It's a different animal there. And he has 2 first-round picks at left tackle and right tackle probably at some point, and it didn't matter. So I don't know if that makes you feel better about Quinn Ewers, but my biggest takeaway when they pulled him, it's like, okay, well, you can't pull a first-round pick because he's playing so poorly. But they did. So I don't even know where you go from there if you were talking about him being a top 32 guy and he gets pulled in one of the biggest games of the season after the way he played, despite, by the way, Rick, and we got to talk about this, how well he played against Michigan in that defense.
I would not draft this player in the first round, period, of what I've seen over the last 2 years we've done him.
Okay.
1, for the durability concerns, 2, for the inconsistent performances.
I don't want to overreact, but
that's over Rick Act. If we're going to talk about over Rick Act, then that's the term we use on here.
I don't want to over Rick Act, but after this game and the way he's played since the injury, I'm thinking middle of day 2 right now. Like I don't want to, in terms, if you need a top 50 guy and you have some needs elsewhere, you're just taking a quarterback that you don't know about in terms of being healthy, and he can flash, and then sometimes he doesn't flash, and he gets benched for the redshirt freshman. All right. Okay, I don't feel good about either of those guys. I would like these young men to play better. Do you think Carson Beck right now is a first-round pick?
I think the inconsistencies this year, he's going to have to finish strong to be. I think he'll still end up in the first round before it's all said and done.
Yeah,
but it'll depend on how he finishes the season.
So last year, 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, and just I'm trying to go through the old Ryan Rolodex. You can go through the Rick Rolodex, it's a little better. But Teddy Bridgewater went in the bottom of the first round. You know something about that. Lamar Jackson went in the bottom of the first round. You know something about that. I think Paxson Lynch went in the bottom of the first round. So you can hit or miss, but there have been some home runs in the bottom of the first round with guys when they're able to. The 2-time MVP, and Teddy was really good before the injury. So I don't know, man. And you talked before about the 5th-year options, also something you consider when you draft these guys in round 1. All right, let's turn to something a little more positive. Give me a name, and you haven't told me yet, of one of the players on either side of the ball of the Georgia-Texas game that you were excited to go back and watch.
Jaylen Walker, I went with.
I'm glad I didn't watch him. I knew you were going to say so. This guy is a grown man. Go ahead.
Yeah, this guy, they play him all over the place. They line him from a stack position. He was, I think, ended up with 3 sacks. He was a man on a mission because I think.
So this is the linebacker for Georgia who people are listening to me not know who he is. Number 11.
Yes, number 11. The pressures that he created, I don't think he's going to make a living as a drop back zone linebacker, although the speed he has to cover the field. He just, and I watched a couple other games, and I think he was really good, but he took it to a whole nother level this game. And you talk about a guy on national TV, when the bright lights come on, he took advantage of those bright lights and wanted to put his name on a map. And I'm sure he was really mad that you didn't have him in your top 32 or top 40.
Top 38. I had him 38. So yeah, he was. I motivated him.
So you motivated him, probably made him a lot of money because the way he played in this game, and because of his ability to rush the passer and his versatility to play multiple positions on the defensive side of the ball. I think defensive coordinators are going to get very creative on how they would utilize him. And to me, at this game, he solidified himself as a first-round pick.
Yeah, producer Claire just put up a photograph of Walker going after Quinn Ewers, and he wore Quinn Ewers out. And by the way, he did it against, as I mentioned, a pretty good offensive line. You can see Quinn's eyes are the same eyes I have when Rick scolds me for not doing something. Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you the question.
Yeah, there's a perfect picture of how he looked the whole game, just like with a glaze over him. And
in Quinn's defense, if you saw Jaylen Walker running 65 miles an hour at you would have that look on your face as well.
Well, no, I mean, you get paid to throw the ball and take a hit.
All right. So we've talked about Abdul Carter out of Penn State over the summer. Haven't talked about him yet so much this year, but he moved from off ball to edge. Compare and contrast these two guys, because I feel like one guy is doing a little better than the other guy, even though both guys are having a pretty good season.
Yeah, I'll talk about Abdul Carter because I think they're very similar. But I'm going to wait to talk about Abdul Carter in our next segment, because I may have a surprise for you.
Well, let me ask you this. Where are you playing Jaylen Walker, who's listed as off ball, but you can play him at safety if you want to? I mean, he's so athletic.
No, I'm playing him as probably an outside 34 linebacker type, but I also know that I can blitz him from the middle. I would put this guy everywhere. So as long as he is mentally able to handle how much he can handle from a defensive schematic standpoint, I would try to utilize this guy and create mismatches in multiple ways at the next level.
He's a problem.
Yes.
What's the comp that comes to mind is an obvious one for me. Are you willing to go that far on the comp that I'm thinking of?
Don't even say you're not saying Parsons, I hope.
All right, I'll just say Chris Spielman. How about that?
All right, that's great. Good. Chris couldn't rush the passer like this guy.
How dare you, sir? Give Chris on here to defend himself. All right. You know what? Chris does remind me of one of the guys we'll talk about in a little bit here, though, in terms of the old school neck roll.
Yes, he does.
That's a good comp. I didn't think about that. All right, the guy I'm talking about is and there's several guys. Could have done with Kelvin Banks, a left tackle, who had his hands full, this young man. I'm going to talk about Mykel Williams, number 13, the edge rusher for Georgia, who's been banged up a little bit this year, so he was finally healthy. And we would talk about him over the summer, and he has I thought over the summer had a chance to be a top 5 guy because of the explosiveness with which he plays. And we saw some of that explosiveness. Now, it helps when you're playing alongside Jaylen Walker. But even if Jaylen Walker weren't on that defense, Mykel Williams is a special player athletically. And I think the more he plays and the healthier he can stay, the more we're going to see him give offensive linemen fits. Plays mostly outside. Played a little 4-eye, but they line up between there and all the way out to 7 tech. He gave Kelvin Banks some problems, the left tackle from Texas, who's my tackle 1 right now, who's going to be a first-round pick. Banks won a few of those things, but the matchups. But I was really impressed with the power with which he played and the speed with which he played, and it was consistent. A little better versus the pass and the run right now, but when you draft guys top 5, you're not drafting them to stuff the run unless they're Dexter Lawrence, who can do a little bit of everything.
Hey, he's not Dexter Lawrence.
But my point is that you draft Dexter Lawrence to clog up the middle. You draft Mykel Williams to get after the quarterback.
Right. And that's, is he going to be make a run here down the end of the season if he can stay healthy, to get him up there in some of that conversation that we'll have next segment. But I do think that if you can get the player that you saw in Texas and you can get that consistently week in and week out.
Poor Quinn Ewers.
Yeah. No, that's
Arch. My bad. He sacked Arch too.
Yeah. Bring him young, bring them all old, just bring them. I'll take them all down.
Ducks on the pond. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupt you. Just Claire put the photograph up there of Mykel Williams making a play.
Yeah, if he can play like this the rest of the season, he's going to continue to climb up draft boards.
All right. Assuming full health, are you taking Mykel Williams or Jaylen Walker first?
Oof. I'm going to go with Walker right now just because I've seen more from him than I did from Williams this year. But I wouldn't be surprised in the end that Williams doesn't pass him up. Depends on how this will be, it's like a horse race. They're both neck and neck. So let's see which one finishes stronger at the end.
I think you're right, though. I think I'm leaning a little bit Jaylen Walker now. The other question I had for you is Travon Walker or Mykel Williams in terms of athletic upside coming out?
I think they're both very similar. But I
think Mykel shows a little more in college so far?
Yeah, I would say that because Walker, when he came out, it was most of his production came as an inside rusher, not from the outside.
And they had all 12 of those guys that ended up being first-round picks on that defense.
Yeah. So I would lean towards Williams right now.
All right, I'm with you. Boy, sad day when we agree on so much.
No.
By the way, you talked about bounce back game for Carson Beck. They have the week off and they play Florida, on November 2nd. So things go sideways against Florida. I don't know what to tell you.